I did have it on mute. Hi. Still hot. Hot, hot, hot. Hi, Justin. Thank you for joining me on this finally Friday night, December 17th. Woo. Okay. We are going to be talking about why do they still have ICD-9 in job listings? People have seen that and they keep asking me about it. They're like, aren't we in ICD-10? Why are they still asking for ICD-9? Well, I will get into that tonight. I will also get into ICD-11 and also where do new medical coders work, or where should they work? So, hi, Floor. Thank you for joining me. Yes, it is definitely TGIF. And thank you for the blue heart, Floor. So that is going to be the topic for tonight. I think that's going to be a pretty good topic. And if you guys have any questions, you can always leave them in the chat and we will get to them. Hi, Amelia. Thank you for joining me. I'm drinking my hazelnut coffee, which makes me so happy. All right, so since we have a good little audience to start, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Tonight, I am talking about ICD-9 in 2021. Why are employers still asking for this? And what is the state of ICD-11? And where should new medical coders work? So let us get into it. All right. ICD-9. Why are employers still asking for ICD-9? Sometimes when you're looking at job listings, they'll say candidate must know ICD-9-CM and must know CPT and HCPCS and all that good stuff. And they don't mention, or sometimes they do mention ICD-10. The reason that this comes up is because nobody is using ICD-9. I will just put that out there, okay? It is gone. It is outdated. It is retired. It was retired back in 2015. We have been in ICD-10 CM and ICD-10 PCS since October of 2015. So no one uses this. Oftentimes these job listings are written either by somebody in HR, or it is written because that was the description of the coder years ago, that they had to know this type of stuff. So when they are looking for new coders, they don't think to update it, especially if it's somebody that's working in HR, they don't know. And sometimes you'll look at these job listings and you'll know who wrote it because of just the way that they're wording things. I can tell if it's somebody in HR who wrote it. I can tell if it's somebody who does not know a thing about coding, but know they need a coder. They need a coder. So and then the other one is, well, that they are a coder, they know what they're looking for, and they have very specific language. And so I like to see those because that tells me that they are very engaged in the hiring process and in getting that information out there. Because if you want a quality candidate, or you want a candidate that is going to fulfill all the needs of that facility, well then the staff should be proactively involved in that. I think so anyway. It's very important. But no one uses ICD-9. If you have been a coder long enough to have been through the ICD-9 process, hello, you can include that on your resume. It is not necessary though. Typically when you are talking about your job experience, you are going to go back 10 years, right? So this has been since 2015. It's only natural, but again, you want to highlight what's most current and what your current experience is and your current skills. So when you're putting your skills on your skills list, you don't want to put ICD-9 because that's going to make you look dated. And they're going to say, well, when was the last time you updated your resume? So You want to put the most newest and freshest skills on there. Ignore it when they ask for ICD-9 experience, because again, that is just either somebody in HR or it was just an old description of a medical coder that they're using to put out there in a job listing. So again, it's not necessary, and it is quite dated, when you're thinking about it. We are in ICD-10. We will be in ICD-10 for quite some time. ICD-11, yes, it is going on in other countries where they are current. Remember, the United States is behind when it comes to sharing of information when it comes to the diagnosis, because we were in ICD-9 for the longest time. And if you recall, many, many years ago, before we actually got into ICD-10, they had delayed it many times because there was worry that they weren't going to get paid, doctors weren't going to get paid. There was going to be like a catastrophic, not getting money in and that kind of thing. So how were they all going to survive? And they thought that the American workers weren't going to be able to keep up. So they did have some foreign companies to kind of pick up the slack if some American companies needed it. However, they found that with the training that had been implemented a year prior, that they were going through those things people were familiar enough, and they were catching on. The American workers were catching on fast enough. So it wasn't this big catastrophic thing that they thought was going to be so hard for people to understand. We were actually all able to catch up on it. And when you think about it, we're studiers. That's what you're supposed to be when you're a medical coder anyway. And so when you give us a task to do, what happened was the ones that did not want to change, they were very comfortable in what they were doing. They were like, I'm not doing this. A lot of people retired or got out of the field at that time when they did the changeover, because they just refused to learn ICD-10. To me, when we were taught, we were given the opportunity to learn. It's not hard once you get into that mind space of, okay, this is where we're going with this. Yes, it was hard to kind of get out of that mindset on some things in ICD-9 at the time, but it was a neat challenge to meet when we all went over to ICD-10. And I still think that it is worthwhile. But again, we're going to be in ICD-10 for quite some time. And with ICD-11, it going on right now in other countries, this is not new. We're always going to be behind in this time, because we can't skip over. We can't skip over this part. There's a lot of things that have to happen too. If you remember, or if you recall from back then, there was a lot of like meetings on Capitol Hill about it and stuff, because how was it going to impact everybody? So it worked out. Everything was fine. And when it rolls around again, and then just under a decade, a little over a decade, somewhere around there, I don't know. I don't have a pinpoint date of when we're going to go into ICD-11, but because there's things floating around all over the internet anyway. But I think we'll probably be in ICD-10 probably for another decade or so before we have to do a changeover again. It is all a part of what we do. And if we've learned anything from the pandemic, it was that we had to think on our feet, and we had to get accustomed to new codes anyway, with the addition of the new codes for COVID, and getting that code added mid-year. I mean, that was unprecedented, but it happened. And we all survived it. We all got through it. We all learned it, and we're still, going on with it. So the pandemic saw a lot of changes. Like it felt like every week there was new guidance out to add this modifier, add this code, and add this procedure. And if they have symptoms, do this. If they don't, and then you do that. And so again, it is about rolling with the punches. That's what you do when you are a medical coder. Hi, Alani. Thank you for joining me. Hi, Karen. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Alani, I answered your question when you posted this on the video earlier. So make sure you go back to that comment. Sometimes I wonder if people see my comments. because I respond, and I usually will respond, or if I don't respond right away, it's because it's something that it can be looked up. Guys, you have to remember that, yes, I do answer questions. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm always glad to answer questions. However, I do think that there is a point where you can take some responsibility to look up some of this stuff. It is very easy in a quick Google search. You know, you have to remember, I still have a lot of emails coming in all day long that I have to respond to. And then I still get to the comments, and I still have to work, and I still have to do all these other things too. So some of the stuff that, I think you guys can look it up. I think you'd be okay to look it up. Go directly to the association websites if it's something association related. And that's just the way that it should be, because that's going to be the start of you learning how to do research as well. Again, there's a lot of videos that I talk about, like what books do you need, and when do you need them, and how long, and when is the changeover, and that kind of thing. I've gone through that so many times. So again, guys, if you're looking for a specific answer on that, go directly to the association website, pick up the phone and call the customer service hotline. If you are taking a test with AAPC, they've got a great customer service hotline. If you call for a HEMA, it depends, but they are responsive, when you do call. So that is another thing that you can always use as a reference too. Justin, oh yeah, Alani, I think Bleu said yes, and I believe that it may cross over to 2022, so you should be able to use 2021 books before that point. Hi Sandra, thank you for joining me. But yeah, I was just pointing that out, Justin, to Alani, that I've already answered that question. So the other thing I want to talk about now is, where do new medical coders work? Somebody asked me, do you suggest that people that are brand new start working at a hospital, or should they work at a doctor's office? Where should new medical coders work? Anywhere you can get in. If you can get in, get in. And don't try to start off with something that is easy. If you think that, oh, maybe if I work at this hospital, it'll be easy. Maybe I can get into an easier clinic. Maybe I could start off easy. There's no such thing as start off easy when you are a medical coder. What happens when you start off easy is you get a false sense of confidence. You get a false sense of confidence because if you're working something that's easy and repetitive, and then all of a sudden you're thrown into something that is complex, you're going to feel lost. And if you've had time in and you get to about a year and all of a sudden you have to go back to this, I have no idea what the heck is going on, that feeling is way worse than if you are brand new and you are just, okay, I'm ready to meet the challenge. A lot of people will do this sort of thing where they're fearful and they don't want to jump into the deep end of the pool. I get it. It's a survival thing. I understand. But the worst thing that you can do to yourself as a brand new medical coder is hold yourself back from experiences. When I went to the second position that I had, which was a profi position, right? A lot of people at that hospital did not want to do that profi position. And they had many people walk off the job. They hated it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to get involved with it because it was too difficult. So when I showed up, fresh-faced and I'm ready to rumble, let's go, I was asked, do you want to work in a profi clinic? And I'm like, yeah, sure, are you sure? And I'm like, why wouldn't I be sure? It's work. Work is work, like, just put me in, coach. And so she's like, well, we've had people that quit because this is too difficult for them. And I was like, well, look, I just moved 8 hours away from my hometown. I got no choice. I'm all in. So let's go. And so I said, just point me in the right direction and I'll get going. And so that was that. And I never feared clinics. Yes, there are clinics that I don't like, that I don't particularly feel comfortable with. It doesn't stop me from working with them though. But if you're a brand new coder, that is the worst thing that you can do is try to think of the easiest place that you can get in. Because trust me, anywhere that you go, that easy clinic is already covered. There's going to be somebody in there already working it. So you are going to be low man on the totem pole for a while. And you're going to work all the stuff that's going to be difficult, all the stuff that the other coders don't want to work. And that is a perfect time for you to get familiar with the hard stuff. The more that you get yourself in there with those ones that are more complex, the easier it will be for you after a while. The best thing about being a brand new medical coder is you have no bad habits. So you're like a sponge and you can develop well by being put into a difficult clinic. If you start overthinking, that's part of the problem. And I think that that's what happens, because sometimes people will go through these fast-paced medical coding programs. They will pass the test and they'll feel like they were just trained to pass a test. And now they have the certification, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to use it. I always recommend going back through your workbooks so that way that you can start to learn again. Reach out, find a mentor, try to find a tutor if you have to, because sometimes you just need somebody to explain things to you. So there's a ton of tutors on LinkedIn. If you want to go on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a great place to network for medical coders. I am also a tutor myself. My rates will be in the description box below when I do update this video, or they are in any of my other videos. So that's what I would suggest to somebody that's brand new. Also, apply with a temp agency, because if you're brand new, everybody's going to want experience. And how are you supposed to get experience if no one will hire you? That's what I say. Go to the temp agency. That was how I got my first job, my second job, and that's what led me to my permanent coding home. So that is what I would recommend for you all. And you know, don't turn away from it so quickly, because with temp agencies, all the experience that you're getting, you can add that to your resume. And you're learning as you go. You're learning about their electronic medical record. You are learning about their encoder. So there's a lot of things that you're able to pick up along the way that you can add to your skills list. So it's literally a win-win situation. And if they like you, they want to keep you, there's a good chance that they will negotiate with the temp agency for you. So that is a plus for you. You always have to show that you're putting your best foot forward, because you never know who is watching. Rachel says, "Hi, Blue. I will be going on internship in May. Could you explain what registries are? And if that's possible path for somebody getting a cert? I know I probably won't be able to do that right away." Justin Blue, maybe we should go for the hardest thing possible. What is the hardest medical coding area? So I'll get back to that one, Justin. But Rachel, so your internship, and you're asking about registries, like, are you asking about like tumor registrar or trauma registrar? What are you asking? Like, which one are you going with? And while I wait, what is the hardest coding area? So I say that, you know, any clinic, any specialty can be hard for different people. For me, ortho was never hard. It was just, okay, I got to figure this stuff out. But if you give ortho to some people, they start hyperventilating because they say, I don't know how to do injury coding and I don't like it and I hate sequela and I don't understand it. Calm down. But again, to me, it's fun. And so it really all depends on the individual. What I recommend is finding a place where you can get lots of experience with different things, like the ER, the emergency room. If you are coding for the emergency room, you've got to see everything. You've got to see heart, you've got to see brain, you've got to see mom and baby, you've got to see sniffles, you've got to see traumas, you've got to see all those things. And you're learning everything. And you're learning about hydrations, and you're learning about, you know, closed treatments of fractures and that kind of thing, and putting on splints and all that good stuff. So there's a lot of things that go on in the ER. So it's going to give you a wide variety of things to be able to put onto your resume. So that is what I would recommend. Or maybe working for like a family practice. Family practice, again, you're seeing everything. But you're also seeing like well visits, like well woman visits, well baby visits, that kind of thing. So you're seeing a lot of different things in family care, family practice. because that's your PCMs, right? Those are your general practitioners that are just taking care of people, and they're the ones that do the referrals out to all these other folks. But when it comes to something like that, again, that's a variety. Or if you can get a job as a pro-fee coder, that's great too, because pro-fee is also covering all the specialties. You are essentially helping the providers to get paid for their cognitive work for going up to visit this patient who is staying inpatient in a hospital, and not only, even though it's outpatient mindset, the patient is physically on the inpatient side. So that is something that you could look for too, because I still say that having the experience of working with the Cancer Therapy Research Center that I had, I saw a lot of things having to do with neoplasms, right? And that was a very interesting start. Is a complex place to start too as well. Because it's not just that you see, it is all the other things too, like hypertension and diabetes and all this other good stuff. So you have lots of other conditions that go along with people who have cancer. And then going on to the pro-fee side, where I was coding for everything. I was coding for ICU, I was coding for mom and baby, I was coding for a lot of the different ortho and podiatry, and I was coding for all of them. And it's just such a variety that it's good to have a little bit of knowledge from all these places, pulmonary and all this good stuff. So that way you're not just pigeonholed into one thing. Now, one could argue, well, Bleu, you're orthopedic and podiatry coder now, aren't you pigeonholing yourself? Not technically, because I do plenty of study anyway. I will always be well-rounded because of that. And just because you're assigned to a particular clinic does not mean that that is your only thing that you know, or the only thing that you have to know. I make it a point to know about urology and neurology, obviously, because I did it before. So all these other clinics, the pain clinic, physical medicine rehab clinic, I've done all of those. I've helped with physical therapy as well. So those are things that when you give yourself that variety, anything, I know that I could go anywhere and just, a couple days in and I'm ready to go. So that's the way all coders should be, because fundamentally, when we know how to code, we should be able to be dropped in anywhere, have those few days to learn the ropes and learn the specialty itself, and then get going if we've never done it before. And before any of you panic and say, well, no, okay, hold on. Because I had somebody say this. Well, I just don't know. I didn't say that you wouldn't need time to adjust. Everybody would need time to adjust. But again, fundamentally, if you know how to code, you should be able to be dropped in anywhere and within a few days be ready to go. As far as like being able to function in that clinic and know what to pick up. So the cancer registry, and if it's a possible path for someone getting a certification. I mean, they do have cancer registrars, which I do recommend. That's one of the very few specialties credentials that I do recommend, because cancer registry is a very specific thing, and they have to know very specific tasks. So there are some facilities that will only hire people who have a tumor registrar credential in order to work there. So that would be something that I would recommend that you do a little bit more research on. But yes, absolutely, having an internship and doing something like that will definitely, be a pathway for you. Again, that was, my first job working at the Cancer Therapy Research Center, not as a registrar, but as a coder. And so that was helpful in learning about your primary and about your secondary, because I didn't know all of that. There's not, until you get into it, sometimes it's not going to make sense to you, because I didn't really grasp what primary and secondary meant back in the day. I got it, but I didn't really understand it until I saw it in action. And so that's the difference there. But yes, anything that you can get experience or exposure to codes will assist you with having experience. Somebody asked me a couple days ago if, they work as an ultrasound tech, and if they're looking at the codes, or if they're picking up the codes that their provider is selecting, is that enough? Well, I mean, they're essentially pushing through codes that are already pre-selected, and I get that. And they're not probably technically coding, because it doesn't sound, from, like, to me, the way that they were describing it didn't sound like they were abstracting anything. They were just reporting what was there. You're still having exposure to codes, and you still need to make sure that the appropriate codes are there. So it does give you some knowledge, but it doesn't quite give you that coding hands-on experience yet. So it's still helpful, but you have to be very clear in your resume about that. Justin says, yeah, I heard about the ER. That sounds like a great place to go for. Yes, and when you get into a place like the ER, it is like the Wild Wild West. I know, because we got tasked to help in the ER. And while I was not happy, I was not happy about that, because I was behind in the ortho clinic, and we had a huge influx of new providers, and they were seeing a lot of patients. And so I was trying to get caught up, and you're trying to get caught up, and you're trying to wrangle new new providers at the same time and try to train them. And then all of a sudden I have to stop and put my stuff on hold, because I got to go help in the ER. And I'm like, really? So this was 6 weeks worth of, we all had to stop. Everybody had to stop, because it was literally an all hands on deck. You had to go and help. So I was like, okay. So I was seeing like all of these things that were coming through the ER. Of course, I would get very excited when I saw an ortho case. I'm like, can I get, look, give it to me. And so they were like, you're such a nerd, Bleu, here. So I would get all the ortho ones, which was fine for me, because I was quick with those. Because like, I would have to stop if I'm looking at like a runny nose case. I'm like, is this all I pick up? And I would just sit there on the fence. I'm like, that's it? It's weird when you go from something that is complex to something that is seemingly easy, and you're like, is that it? There's nothing else? There's got to be something else. And you play this game in your head, and you're just like, is that all? And they're like, yeah, Bleu, it's real easy. I'm like, let me go back to my complex clinic, please. My head works better there. Because with the easier stuff, I was just like, that was too easy. That doesn't feel right, so. Alani says, do you recommend any CPT questions with the answers practice book, the CPC exam practice, the CPC exam practice book? That's the one that I recommend. And it doesn't matter if you're taking the AAPC exam or the AHIMA exam. I still recommend the AAPC CPC exam prep guide. Rachel says, the ER sounds like a panic attack. What is it? Dr. Zubin Damania says it's like a Bangkok street fight. That's what he said. It's like a Bangkok street fight, and you're just waiting for somebody to yell out "World Star" in the ER. So I can imagine it is that same way with the coding. And so I had actually, I was asked to do a talk to the ER residents. And so I was like, okay, so they wanted somebody who knew ortho and things like that. I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. And they were asking me specifically for the modifiers, and they were asking me specifically for like the global period. Can you explain this to us? So I went in there, and as I'm getting ready to start my presentation, the ER coder who was on duty that day, she comes right in. She's like, hi, Bleu. And I'm like, and she's like, I just want to sit in. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And so as we're sitting there, and I'm giving the class, and I'm like, hey guys, this is the ER coder that actually goes in the ER. And she's like, hey everybody. So as I'm giving the class, she's like, oh, and she's asking questions, and they're looking at her and they're looking at me, and we're just having this conversation because I mean, when you code in the ER, you have to know this stuff. Not only that, they need to document, the providers need to document well in the ER. You know how much money and revenue gets lost because they don't know. Sometimes they don't know, or they're not wanting to do it. And if they're not wanting to do it, that's not the right way to be, because again, everything that they do and the care that they provide can always come back to them. If the patient gets sick or gets an infection from the care that they received from them, and it's not documented, now there's an issue. Now we've got a problem. So again, it's got to be documented. And so training them on those types of things is very important. But it is fun. Not so much a panic attack, but fun stuff. Dustin A says, awesome work. Justin D says, true, but you always want to go where the need for your services is great, because that's job security. Exactly. And making sure that also helps you to be able to share all of that knowledge. And so that would be what I would recommend when you are looking for work as a brand new medical coder. You want to go to places that are going to give you the most, basically, bang for your buck, and working in the ER is certainly going to do that, because you're going to get such a wide variety of specialties. And then you can learn from there what specialty you want to go into, if you're wanting to go into a specialty, or if you're wanting to stay in the ER. Because I always say ER coders are different. They are different. They are different from those long hauler cardiac coders. They're different from long hauler ortho coders. I mean, they are. And just the mindset is completely different. But, when you're dealing with things that are complex, like the ER, or like cardio, or like ortho, it's fun. And you never get bored. It's always like that puzzle. You always get the puzzle. And for some, that's the draw about medical coding, is the puzzle and figuring it out. And what do you do? And how do you look at this? And how do we incorporate modifiers into this? And how do we code these procedures? It's all a part of it, folks. And the more you study it, the more you're in it, and the more you go over like just different things, and you challenge yourself, you challenge your mind, the better you will get with time. I was not like this back in the day, because I didn't know. I was like everybody else when you start off brand new, and you're just like, okay, and then I would hear, oh, well, yeah, I read that in Coding Clinic, and I'm like, what are they talking about, Coding Clinic? I don't understand, like, what is that? And so that's when I learned about Coding Clinic. And so I was just like, I could work with this. So, but it's all a good time, at least I think so anyway. All right. Any other questions? Are we doing good? Did I answer everybody? I think I did. Justin says, Blue, do you have to train, educate, or hire new coders? Me personally, I do not do hiring. My supervisor and people above me do that. But I have trained new coders. I have trained veteran coders, and I've educated them as well. So I like to do training. I really do like to train other coders. When we had an instance where I did a class for ortho. I was doing just like an overview on ortho. And it was nice to be able to train a group of coders and get them to have that aha moment, like, oh, okay, now I get it. Because I would ask them, what I do whenever I give a class or whenever I'm educating coders, even when I educate providers, is I have my slide deck. Now, I'm not going to read this slide deck to people, because there's nothing worse than that. You have the slide deck up on the screen and you're just reading from the slide deck. I don't do that. I know what I wrote. So I give it to everybody else to read. So what I do is I have them read to me. So we read a slide and we stop and we talk about it. Does anybody have any questions on this? or I will expand on what I was talking about there, because on a slide deck, on a particular slide, what I do is I will list the highlight points. Now, I have been guilty in the beginning of writing too much. Then I had to go back and look at it again and take about half of it and then take a quarter of it. So that's how I learned to put the bullet points on there. And then as I'm speaking and as we're having this conversation, we get, it goes better, because now everybody knows they got to be awake. And what I do is I tell them, I said, okay, either you guys figure it out, y'all go however you want to go, everybody takes a page and reads, or I'll call on you randomly. And so they typically work that out on their own, where they go around the room and they read. My providers have done that to me too, because I said, I'm not reading to you guys. I've already written this. I know what I said. I said, but I want you guys to read it, because there's something about when you're giving a class, sometimes people's voices can become monotone, or people can become immune, if you will, to a person's voice. And so what I do is, if you're having to listen and your brain has to stay active to say, okay, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? That's somebody else. That's somebody else. It's different people that are talking. Now we have to really pay attention, so that that increases the engagement, number one. Number two, it keeps people on their toes, because they don't want to be called on. So now they have to pay attention. Okay, where am I? Where am I in this, where we're reading the slides? And so as we're reading the slides and we're going over these things, and I always ask them and I tell them, at the end, I'm going to ask y'all questions. And what I do is I have my swag bag. Now, the swag bag is full of swag that I've brought back from previous conferences. So if you've ever been to a conference for a HEMA or a AAPC, they have like the exhibit hall where they give out like the free goodies and stuff like that. What I do is I put all the stuff that either I don't want or I got too much of or whatever. I put it all into a bag. They love this bag, because I didn't have to put anything out for it. This is free stuff and is really cool and cute and stuff like that. So they start fighting over the stuff that's in it. But in order to get something in there, you have to answer a question. It's just a fun way to get the audience excited, because now they want to know what's in the bag. It's not about what they just learned. It's about what's in the bag. I want to know what's in the bag. So then they start looking through and they start digging through. And it's the funniest thing when I've seen it happen. So I love it. And I also will bring water, a little bottle of water. And sometimes I'll bring a candy basket or whatever, because it also gets people like, okay, we need to be awake, alive, and paying attention. Because especially if it's after lunch, or if it's before lunch, people are not going to pay attention if they're thirsty or if they're hungry. So if you can put a little something, chew on something, you're good, drink some water, whatever. And now you have this little prize that you can win too. So it's all about getting creative with your approach. Everything that I do is meant to enhance the experience. And everybody that I've done this for, they have all enjoyed it, because it's different. And it's not okay, this is your slide and we're going to go ahead and read this. And now my voice is getting monotone and I'm going to fall asleep and I'm going to nod off because I've got all this other stuff. No, it's not like that. This is now engagement. And so they do learn from it, and stuff does stick with them because they remember because everybody was talking about this, or they had a question about that or whatever. So that is what I do when I give a class. And it generally works. And I've had veteran coders who come to me struggling with ortho and really needed help. So I was able to help them in their journey to learn. And it's very rewarding when you hear back from these people and they're like, I was able to successfully get through an audit because I was able to show them what you showed me. And I also got this other lead on this other resource. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome, because it is about sharing that information. Coders do need to learn how to arm themselves with knowledge and where to find resources, because at the end of the day, that is your name that is on the line. And while there are thousands and thousands of medical coders, we all have reputations, and there is 5 degrees of separation sometimes. So trust me, somebody will know somebody who knows you. And you always want to have that. That's a very good coder. That's a very knowledgeable coder. That's a meticulous coder who knows what they're doing. Yeah. All right. So what else do we have here? Hi, Hilda. Thank you for joining me. Rachel says, I am having fun coding so far, but we are still pretty early into it. I'm nervous I'm not going to understand it as it gets harder. It's going to be more challenging as it gets harder, as you get into the more complex stuff. And there's going to be a time when you're not going to understand. There will be that time. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that part. There will be a time when you don't understand and you're just going to want to light your books on fire. But if you are patient with yourself through that time, it's going to feel so good when you finally get it, when that light bulb goes on and you're just like, ah, oh, I got it. Now I get it. I will use the example of that darn Mohs procedure. I hated Mohs. I don't hate it anymore, but I hated Mohs for the longest time until I said, finally, I was like, I'm not going to run from you anymore. And that was when I was studying for my CCS, right? Because I'm pretty confident with all the other procedures, but that was the one procedure that I just kept coming back to anytime I was looking at practices or whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is the one thing that I'm going to have to go mano with. And so, because that was the one thing that I was not comfortable with. And that was through any book that I had studied with, whether it was the AAPC CPC exam prep book or, you know, any of the other ones. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? And so I did have another book and it gave the rationale. So I was like, okay. So I went and I looked at the answers and I looked at the rationale and I'm like, there it is. And sometimes it's going to be that one little moment that you're going to finally get it. And sometimes it'll be like, okay, you'll read it and then you got to walk away. And then when you come back, that's when it'll happen. That's when you'll get it. So if for every coder, it's different. Everybody has a different reaction to it. Everybody is going to handle the stress of not understanding something differently. But sometimes, especially if you know how you learn best. For me, I learn best by listening. That's how I learn. I learn by listening and by visuals, right? That's how I am, but more by listening. So sometimes I'll have to just listen to it and then I'll be like, now I get it. So really it all depends on you. And if it is that you have to have somebody explain it to you because you're a listener too, that's what you're going to have to research and look for whatever it is that's troubling you. And again, it goes back to finding a mentor or finding a tutor, somebody that can explain something in particular for you in a way that you're going to be able to understand. And it's a different approach for every tutor. Every tutor is not the same, just like every instructor is not the same. For me, when I look at, okay, is this, that's the thing I like about my tutoring sessions over Zoom, is that I can see the person. I can see their facial expressions. I could hear them when they're like hesitant, like they don't know. And sometimes it's just a flash of it's on their face and they could tell me, yes, I get it. And I know better. So what I'll do is I'm not going to confront the person that I know that they don't get it. What I do is I explain it a different way. And then that's when I see the light bulb. So when I see that, then I know I did it right because that's what you do. Sometimes people don't want to admit when they don't know something. Students are very guilty of this. Doctors are guilty of this too. They're not going to admit sometimes that they don't understand something, but it's up to you if you truly do care on if they're going to grasp it or not, and you truly do care that they're going to succeed in that, you will find a way to make them understand. You know, ED says, I really want to take the CCS-P or the CPC, but not get a job working part-time. I really want to take the CCS-P or the CPC, but not get a job working part-time. I have the 2021 books and I have till 2022. My second time buying coding books. Should I buy 2022 and start over? I have no idea. how much and how far you are in your coding, like how long have you studied? Because you have to the end of April to use your 2022 books if you are looking at taking, 2021 books if you're looking at taking an AHEMA exam. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't answer that question because I don't know where you are in your program, or if this is your first attempt, or, what are you trying to do? If you couldn't elaborate. Justin, Rachel, I'm at that point. That's why I'm working with Bleu with tutoring. It's not so much that I don't understand. It's overwhelming with the sheer amount of things to learn and memorize. Rachel says, yes, exactly. Justin says, in some ways, I think the ideal medical coding program, maybe like 2 years like the RHIT program, or the 1-year program, is definitely accelerated. I don't think below 1 year is even possible. Rachel says, I've had those moments and it's a good feeling. We haven't gotten to that procedure yet, but my teacher has mentioned it. Oh, so she understands or he understands. So yeah. Justin says, how long is your program, Rachel? Rachel says it's around 8 months, I believe. I was going to the local community college, and of course, they discontinued the program, LOL. Justin says, 8 points is super fast, or 8 months. But at least you have a teacher. I'd say make every day count. The time goes fast. I'm about 5 months into my program. Has it been 5 months already, Justin? Oh my gosh, that's fast. And it's only a little over 7 months left. The pressure is huge. You're going to be all right, Justin. You're going to be all right. ED, I have the RHIT, and it will be my first attempt. Got my HIT degree 9 years ago. And been revising it, and been revising for 1 month. Took 12 weeks of the ICD-10 course. Oof. I don't know. That might be a little fast. I mean, with that CPC, they changed the amount of questions, and January 2022, right? January 1, 2022, the CPC exam, if you're looking at that one, it's going to 100 questions, and it's 4 hours. Also, I heard that the price will change because it's not going to be that default of where you get 2 attempts. Now they're going to have different prices for that. And so that's changing too. I didn't see that in that mail, in the email, and I didn't see that on the white paper, but I did hear about it today. So I just want to put that out there. If you're looking at the CPC, they are going to go up on their exams, but you're not going to get that free retake without paying for it now. So, and then I heard if you are still having that outstanding second attempt, that you have to get it done before the end of the year because it won't cross over into the new year. If that's you, make sure that you call AAPC and find out, because that's just what I heard. I can't confirm nor deny because I don't know. And again, guys, I'm not an AAPC member, but majority of my audience is AAPC, so I share the bits that I get from you all and from what I see on the website. So Justin says, yeah, that time went by so quick, it was scary. Justin, I thought if you had the RHIT, you didn't need the CCS or the CCS-P. I thought the CCS, CCS-P, RHIT, and RHIA were all interchangeable. No. The RHIT is the associate's degree. The RHIA is the bachelor's degree. These are our leaders. These are the ones that are our educators. They are our supervisors. They are our auditors. The RHIT is more of the worker bee. And they do a lot more of the hands-on coding. They're supervisory over the coders and things like that. That's typically what they do. And they act as a deputy sometimes. to the RHIA, depending if that is a situation in their facility. It depends, who does what. But that's typically how it is run. With the CCS and CCS-P, sometimes employers will require the degree holder to get a certification, either the CCS or the CCS-P, because the concentration of the degree programs is not, in fact, medical coding. It is more of the managerial, the statistical side, and all of the other things, the law. And so that is what the program is all about. And what are we doing here? Why are we... Did it stop my live? Hold on. Are y'all still with me? Can somebody comment? Because my computer just went crazy and now I can't see. No, I see you. Okay. Ooh, don't do that. I don't know why. Now I can't. Okay, y'all see me. All right. Woo. I don't know what just happened. It's like a hiccup. It just hiccuped on me. Because like it just took out everything I just did. Okay, hold on. Let me, because what I do is I have my screen going here, right? So that I can see all the comments, because I can't see it on my phone, the comments that come in. And so I don't want to be all up on the screen and be like, I can't see, So let me get this screen back on here. That was weird. Okay, I don't need any issues out of you. All right. Hold on. Let me get back to that. Ah! That was weird. All right. Okay, here we go. All right. Now, where was I? Okay. Yes, Justin, can't live with them, can't live without them. Let's see. So, okay, so let's back to the, okay. So the reason that the employers will ask the degree holders to get, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, okay, guys, so don't come for me saying, well, they don't ask me. Okay, sometimes it happens where the employer will ask the degree holder to also get a certification because, again, their programs are more geared towards the managerial side, and they want to ensure that the person knows how to code, because you can actually go and find plenty of degree holders that don't code. They don't code because that is not their function. Their function is to oversee the ship. So that is what they do, and that is their concentration, not the coding side. That is for the worker bees. And so that is why some employers will ask for that. It really all depends on the individual, but it is a good thing for degree holders to get certified like CCS or CCS-P, because I think that if you are the last line of defense, the last voice in an audit, right, which can occasionally happen, it's good to know the ins and outs. It's good to be able to hear both sides, and not just because that's your position and whoever comes up with the best argument. It's literally because that's your position and you understand, and so you know who is actually correct. So that's the thing right there. I mean, but it's not interchangeable. No, the RHIA and the RHIT, again, those are our leaders. CCS and CCS-P, the CCS is a gold standard. The CCS-P says that you've mastered the outpatient setting, and so that is very valuable. Either one of those excuse me, and the CPC is also valuable as well. Angelica, what does the medical records department do? Just what their name says. The medical records, they manage the records. A lot of it is not paper-based anymore. A lot of it is electronic, but they still also have like release of information. They still also do, the organization things and things like that, as far as like keeping all the information, storing and putting away records, getting records and things like that. So while, yes, it's all electronic, there are still some paper-based records out there. So that is what they do. Sometimes they're scanning it in to the system so that it can upload into the system and that kind of thing. And so they can just put it away in storage or whatever, get rid of it. when it is appropriate, when the time is appropriate for them to retire those records and put them away, or do whatever with them. But that's what they typically do, and they will transfer records. If they have a hospital that's requesting records or whatever, they'll do those types of things. So yeah, that's pretty much what they do. And then of course they're closely related. It's in the same umbrella house with all of health information. So there goes your coders, there goes your billers, there goes your release of information folks, and all those. They're all housed under that umbrella. Because sometimes you'll find coder positions under medical records tech. Technically, at my job, that is what I am labeled as a medical records tech. Not actually a medical coder, but a medical records tech. And so that is just their verbiage for what we are. For others, it's health information tech. For others, it's medical coder. So there's a variety of names for us. So yes, that's generally what they do. Hopefully that answers that. But yes, and Hilda, you said, what are the proposed prices? I don't know, because I didn't get that information. Like I said, it's just what I heard. So let's see. I mean, we could check the website. I'm sure they had tons of people asking. Well, okay, AAPC. Is this AAPC's 12 Pets of Christmas is here? Their marketing team. Get savings on training and resources and more. Check out today's deal. I don't know what pet means, but you would think that they would have it like right in your face, like all the, we had a change and this is what happened and here's all the information. They don't have that. Not that I'm seeing right away, unless y'all see it, and by all means, share. Wait, before you go. You knew I was trying to leave. Oh, AAPC. Hilda says, no worries. I was just curious what the pricing change will come to in 2022. And like I said, I'm trying to look on here, and it doesn't say CPC. Oh, they have a no-show fee. Well, oh, you sneaky. So they have right here where it says a CPC best value prep until December 31st. It is $398. With your CPC exam online, it's one attempt. 3 free practice online exams, and then a free 2022 CPC study guide and the CPC exam review. You choose a package through the 31st. It is $398 if you're doing it online. If you're doing it in person, it's $498. It includes the CPC exam, 3 free online practice exams, a free 2022 study guide, and then the CPC exam review. And then it says membership is required to take the exam. It doesn't say. And it also doesn't say like how the test is going to change either. I guess that makes sense. It'll probably be January 1 where they'll load that information on what the new outline of the test is going to look like. So maybe that's what it'll do. Excuse me. More CPC exam FAQs. Nope. Is anybody still doing their test before the end of the year? Anybody in the audience doing their test before the end of the year? Or are you planning on taking your CPC next year? Let's see if I can pick somebody's brain. Karen says, my email didn't say anything about the pricing. And like I said, it's just what I heard. So, but, and like I said, mentioned earlier, I didn't see it in the email either. And I didn't even see it on the white paper. But I can imagine that that's not the only change that they were going to come up with. And I mean, I guess I didn't really think about that last night when I was talking about it. But, I mean, you have to anticipate a change in that because naturally the exam is going to change, so the cost of it will probably change as well. And like I said, just it really all depends. And my screen keeps freezing on me. What are we doing? Why are we being bad? Alma says, I wanted to do my CPC exam next year, but I feel I need to do a refresher course. Yes. Because even though it's going to be 100 questions, right? It's going to be 100 questions and 4 hours. If you have not studied, if you have not gone over your books, if you've not done any of that, it could be a problem, so that's the thing. When you're looking at taking this test, and even though it seems more shorter, and I think 100 questions in 4 hours is reasonable. That's 25 questions per hour. When you're looking through these books, just because it's shorter, don't get complacent in that, and it's less questions because it may come up and bite you. The reason that they had dropped the amount of questions and they had dropped the time too as well is because they said that in the white paper, what they said was people were guessing at the last minute on quite a few. So that's really not a good barometer for testing, right? Because when you think about it, how can you really measure somebody's knowledge if they're rushing at the last minute? And they said that people would complain that it's too many questions and not enough time to do it. And 150 questions at 5 hours and 40 minutes. That's a little over 2 minutes per question. So it depending on how fast you actually get through your book, people have made it through a lot quicker than that, So it really all depends. But you have to think that a lot of times the people that take the CPC exams, they go through these fast-paced programs, They go through these fast-paced programs and they're not really taught. Some of them are not taught. And it's true. You don't have to agree with me, but it's true. That they're really taught to pass the exam. And then they're told, well, you'll learn in the real world. That's not the place to learn. The fundamentals need to be taught in the schoolhouse. It really does. But if you are in that situation, the best thing that I can do is tell you this. Don't panic. You can do this actually on your own. That's the great thing about medical coding is that all it takes is a little bit of commitment and some will and some focus. And you can actually do this on your own. You can learn this on your own. This is why HEMA and AAPC, both for the certifications, either the CCS, CCS-P, or even the CCA or the CPC, they don't require you to go through a formal program. A few years ago, HEMA did require you to go through an approved HEMA program to take the CCS. They've since lifted that. So now you have the opportunity to take the CCS, the CCS-P, the CCA, or the CPC. And all of them, again, don't require formal training. So you can learn on your own and sit for any of these, right? And going through your book on your own as a person who's going to take the CPC exam, right? If you're somebody like that, and you're looking to take that CPC exam, you know that the majority of that is this book here. And currently, it's broken down by each chapter, and it tells you there's 10 questions per chapter and that kind of thing. And if you don't know your book, that's part of the problem. If you've tabbed the heck out of your book, if you've highlighted it and underlined it and things like that, that's again going with being trained to pass the exam. You don't need your books to have tabs. They don't need to be underlined. They don't need to be highlighted. And the reason that I say this is because the book already has the answers. You just have to know how to work the book. But sometimes people get so focused on how do I make it easier by tabbing and things like that so I can get to the book faster, rather than putting in the time to actually get to know the book and actually flip each and every single page so that you know where. You guys see this. I do not have tabs on this book. I took 2 certification exams this year, the CCS-P and the CCS, and I passed them both. Both times, my books were not tabbed because it's unnecessary. It tears your pages. The tabs will get in your way. And again, it makes your book look ratty. The book already has the answers. And I'm going to keep saying that because the more you look at the book, you're going to understand that. You don't have to read everything. You don't have to memorize everything. But what you do have to do is get into that repetitive action of looking and knowing where the stuff is in the book. Because there's so much information and so many helpful things that if you know your book, none of these questions are going to be difficult for you. Because you're going to be able to say, oh, I remember where I saw something about that. And you ask anybody, any teacher who's given an open book test, and these medical coding exams are open book tests. These medical coding certification exams are open book. The faster you get through these, the better off you'll be. So that is the most valuable thing I can ever tell you guys, is to get familiar with the book. And looking through these books and getting familiar, you're going to be able to get through faster. Because if you, like I said, if you ask those teachers that have given people open book tests, the people that have failed the test, those teachers that have said, is because they did not know the book. Because the answer was already in the book. And again, if you know where to find your guidelines, and if you've been reading your coding guidelines, like I've been telling you, then you'll know exactly where to go. You don't have to memorize them, but you'll know, oh yeah, I know chapter 3 is this, chapter 17 is that, and I know exactly where to go in the book. Oh, I need to look about this other thing about POAs or whatever. Oh, that's exactly where I need to go. Okay, here we go. So all of those things, again, they're in your books. And the quality of the books that you're getting is also important too, because not all books are created equally. Okay, of course, we all have, you're taking the HEMA or AAPC, you have to have the AMA CPT Professional Edition. You do. But when it comes to your diagnosis book, you have choices, you have variety. I trust Optum. This is not an ad for Optum, but you guys know. I talked about this yesterday. When you go through this book, Optum in particular, they like their illustrations on, anatomy and things like that. So that way you don't have to feel that pressure of having to memorize everything in anatomy, because you already have the plates here. And when you're looking up codes in the book, and when you're looking up all your guidelines and everything, you know where to go. And the appendixes will also help you as well. So again, it really all depends on what book you're getting. AAPC, their ICD-10 CM book, I was not impressed with. I would not recommend it, but I know that it is part of the program and is part of the package, and they give it to you and that kind of thing. So, I mean, if you're looking at it like that, that's okay. Optum always has sales. Right now, their 2021 editions are on sale for 80% off, and their 2022 editions are on sale for 50% off. So they do have sales periodically through the year, but it's the end of the year, and it's the best time to get books if you're looking to get books. And then you can go to optum360coding.com, and that is where you can find it under best deals. So, I mean, that's what I recommend, guys. And I'm not here to sell you anything. Whether you get into medical coding or not, that's entirely up to you. But I'm just letting you know, as a veteran medical coder, what I wish people would have told me back in the day, because I didn't know. Alma says, I want to do, but I need that. ED, do you find the AHIMA CCS-P prep book helpful? No, I do not. And I'm being very blunt when I say that. I do not recommend any of AHIMA's exam prep books, because of the simple fact that what the material that they're covering in there naturally is not going to be on the test. None of those questions are going to be on the test. That makes sense, right? Because it would be foolish of AHIMA to put out books that have the questions that are on the test, right? However, I will say that it does not prepare you in the way that you would expect. I did have the CCS exam prep book, and again, I don't recommend it, because in terms of the value that I got from the AHA coding handbook, that was better, and I actually credit that book for helping me to learn more about ICD-10 PCS and even the diagnosis coding, the specialties that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm familiar, but I don't work with them all the time. So it did help me, and I found that that book was a lot more helpful than the CCS prep book. So I recommend that if you are looking to study for even the AHIMA exams, that if you are looking to study and get help with the CPT side, that you study with the CPC exam prep guide. Now, why would you study with the CPC exam prep guide for an AHIMA exam? Because naturally, both of them test you, right? On the outpatient side, the CCS-P is all the outpatient. The CCS will test you on outpatient coding. So you can use that book to prep for these, right? Even though it says, oh, it's for CPC, they're still giving you scenarios and they're giving you the rationale. That's the key right there. When the book gives you the rationale and you're able to run through those. And the thing that I like about the AAPC study guide is that it gives you these wonderful scenarios, and it gives you these wonderful rationales. And I'm with AHIMA, and I recommend their book, the CPT, their CPC exam prep guide, because again, it's covering all the CPT, and it's so concentrated because that's all that CPC exam is the CPT book. And so again, it will help you if you're looking to study for the AHIMA exams. And to spend as much money as those books are for the AHIMA prep guides, it's disappointing what you get from it. It's meant to put you through that feeling of being in the exam, but it is not a reliable barometer for anything. And people have fallen into that trap of, I got the exam prep guide from AHIMA, and when I did, none of those questions were on the exam, but I failed. But I did really good on the practice book. So what happened? That test is different for everybody. And you don't know what is on the test, because actually those AHIMA exams, they're a range of questions. It's not set in stone questions like with the AAPC that right now is 150 questions, and then in January it's going to flip over to 100 questions. With AHIMA's exams, it's a range of questions, so you don't know how many questions you're going to get, number one. And then number two, again, if you want to be put through the paces, go and work with the workbook like the AHA book that I've been recommending. Work with that, study with that, use that to study for your exam. This one right here. And this is a 2019 book. And I have this particular book listed, and I will have it listed in the description box when I update this video. So use this book to study with, even if you have the 2021 editions, even if you have the 2022 editions. Some of the codes in here have been updated, yes, the diagnosis codes or whatever, but this is covering the inpatient side, and it's also covering the diagnosis coding. So you can use this to study. And again, if you have some of the codes that have been updated, it's okay. You're going to know. But again, the rationale is explained in here very well. I really love this book. And like I said, I credit this book for helping me to pass. I already knew the outpatient side, so I didn't have that problem. But it was that inpatient side that I was, kind of worried about, because I don't have experience on the inpatient side. But again, the AHA book really helped to break it down. And it is really good. It's a really good book. It's $39 on eBay. I mean, not eBay, but Amazon. But studying with this, using the Optum 360 ICD-10 PCS manual, and in the back, in Appendix M, they have questions, right? Procedure questions, and they also have the answers. So they have like the questions on one appendix, and then the next appendix, they'll have the answers to those questions. So what I did was I went through all of those questions and I looked them up in the book one by one, doing that the whole time. So that way I can get practice with coding for the ICD-10 PCS. Again, it was a lifesaver because going through that, studying that, making sure that I understood the approaches and what they meant and how to get those procedures really helped me with that CCS exam. Because CCS, again, is going to put you through the paces of inpatient coding and outpatient coding. So very helpful resource. And I don't know about other ICD-10 PCS publishers, but for what I know, for what I trust, it would be Optum. And again, in here, it's going to have a lot of helpful information as you go. And in the answers, it also gives some explanations on some of them that seem a little bit unusual, right? But it will give you some rationale explanation very briefly. So very worthwhile. Right now, this book, the 2021 edition, is about $24 on Optum360coding.com. So that's my suggestion there. But yes, a little bit unconventional methods to study. But again, I was successful. I took the CCS-P and passed. I took the CCS exam and passed. Both of them this year. So this is my advice anyway. Hilda, Blue, let's suppose, bad Hilda. Hilda says, Blue, let's suppose I fail the CCS. Would I need to wait 90 days to take another test, such as the CCA? Yes, it is 90 days between tests, but you will not fail if you've been studying. Trust me, you'll be fine. Alma, I agree with you, Blue. I felt rushed when I was attending the course. There you go. So you understand. And Karen says, Blue is right. The answer is in the book. Just don't overthink the answer. That's right. Justin, yep. I just hope the 2022 books aren't a huge difference from the 2021. I mean, it's updates. I mean, it's going to be updates here and there, but it's not drastic. It's not like it's going from ICD-9 to ICD-10. That was a drastic because it's a completely different code set. But it is not. And that's a common worry among people, is that, is it going to be so different? If with AAPC members, they say, well, if I use the previous year in January, is it going to be a huge difference? Well, I mean, when you think about the updates, and they do have, the updates all over CMS and things like that, like what was updated and that kind of thing. When you look at the updates, like back pain, low back pain, it's expanded now, right? Obviously, those codes are not going to be in the 2021 book, but they are going to be in the 2022 book. And so that would be one of those things that you may run into. But then at that point, if you're still using the old book and you're taking a new test, then that would be one of those things that you'd have to just kind of make your best guess and move on, but it's not going to be so drastic that it's going to be unrecognizable to be able to get through. There may be some updates and there may be some new things, but again, not so drastic that you wouldn't be able to handle it. And it's something that you have to expect every single year. And sometimes with the guidelines, sometimes they'll be updated as well. So it really all depends on what's happening. Like I said, with COVID, that changed a lot of things. And there was guidance that was put out mid-year, and then there was guidance that changed mid-year, and then we had it all in 2021, and then in 2022, the code set expanded even more because now it's making way for more of those codes, and it's making way for like vape injuries as well. So that is something that every year is going to change, because as medicine evolves and so does our learning, right? And so do other things when they discover new things. And it's all a part of the process. It never gets dull, folks. It never gets dull. So Exciting stuff, right? But yes, there is a 90-day waiting period between exams. Doesn't matter what you take with AHIMA. Did I get everybody? I think I did. Yeah, I think I got everybody. Yeah. And with ED, if you're still on the line, I got the Medical Coding Pro book for the CCS-P prep, and I liked that book. It's a little cheapy book, just $39, I think. But it was good. I mean, I liked it. It was very helpful for me. I did use that one because I knew that I did not want to use the AHIMA books to study for that. But for me, with the outpatient side, being that it's been my coding home for 13 years, it was more familiar with me. I did worry. I will be honest. I did worry about the CCS. The thing that I worried about the CCS the most was the compliance and regulatory. That was what I worried about the most with them, because that's not like something that you can just, okay, there's a book and there's this. It's kind of all over the place. You can look at CMS and see some of those frequently asked questions, and now kind of like, okay, you start to learn more about HIPAA and all those kinds of things. And but is that enough? That was where I was kind of stuck. I'm like, is it enough? I hope it's enough. Karen says, I have the ICD-10-CM 2021 through AAPC. Should get the Optum 2022 or wait until I find a job first? I'm doing Practicode. Practicode is helpful for me. Well, that's great. And it's entirely up to you. If you want to stick with the AAPC book, that is totally fine. Like I said, the Optum books, they're just very helpful, in my opinion. And again, don't spend money where you don't need to. And if you're looking for a job, that kind of thing, you could still use your 2021 books if you're like taking their coding test or whatever. So that is fine, but it's up to you. Justin, Medical Coding Pro, I saw that on Amazon for both the CCS and the CCS-P. Yes, and they actually have it for the CPC as well. So they have it for all of the certifications. And I mean, I liked it. I thought it was great. It's just a little short book, and it does give you a couple of practice exams, So it's got the variety on there too. So I liked it. I thought it was helpful for me when I was studying, but it's just one of those things that I would recommend. Yes. Karen says, I've heard that they are great and I wanted to try it, but I wasn't sure if I should wait for the employer first. Well, I mean, they are really great. I do like them. I can't get enough of them, clearly. And if you wanted to spend $20 on just seeing what it's like, I mean, they're $20, $24, and so you get the 2021 for that. You spend $50 and you can get, or a little over $50, $54, something like that, and get the 2022, just to see what it's like, and that's entirely up to you. If you want to check it out and look at that, you could also try to look on eBay and see if you can get find a cheaper one, so you can just look at it and check it out. That way you don't have to spend all that money. But you just kind of look through the book and kind of get a lay of the land, and I think you would really like it. At least I do. I love them. Justin, that book has a mock exam. Sounds like a great pre-CCS exam before the actual CCS exam. So yeah. So like I said, I highly recommend it. And it was helpful for me. But like I said, for the CCS, when it comes to that, I recommend the AHA book, and I recommend going through the practices in the Optum 360 ICD-10 PCS book in the back in Appendix M. So that's what I recommend that you do for that, to prep for that. I'm looking at the name of the book. So for the compliance and regulatory, because you just never know what you're gonna get on that one. The book that I found that was perfect, I found it yesterday on Amazon, and I left the link in yesterday's new in 2022, the CPC exam length video. So that book that I recommend for the compliance and regulatory, for like just learning like the broad strokes and stuff like that, is called Law, Liability, and Ethics for Medical Office Personnel or Professionals. So again, on Amazon, and it is a really good deal. And so that I would recommend because it's got everything. It's got a mix of HIPAA and high tech and all that good stuff. So it's covering a lot of that compliance and regulatory. And how more perfect can you get in law, liability, and ethics for medical office professionals? So if you wait until after I get done with tonight's video, I will update the description box, and that way you guys can check it out on Amazon. You do not have to click on the link because I just gave you guys the title, so you can look it up yourselves if you like. You don't even have to click on the link because I may get a commission if you do. So that is just something that you guys should know. When it comes to looking at those things, you can go to CMS, you can check out their frequently asked questions and just kind of peruse around in there. They have the Medicare Learning Network, which is very helpful. They do have a whole thing about the global period, and it's this 19-page booklet that is the best and most perfect example of the global period. And it breaks it down in like perfect plain English. And I love that. So that is a option if you're looking for something like that, if that's confusing for you. There's a whole wealth of knowledge to be gained just by visiting cms.gov, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Very helpful website, especially if you are studying for an exam as rigorous as the CCS or the CCS-P or even the CCA. So, but yes. So are there any other questions tonight? Thank you all for joining me. I had such a good crowd tonight. So that law liability book helped you with the compliance section. I did not study with it, but what I did was when I looked it up, because I was trying to look for something that would be a one-stop shop for you guys. When I looked at the table of contents and everything, because you can preview it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally a one-stop shop book. Literally a one-stop shop book. And it's all the compliance and regulatory that they talk about. Because if you go to the AHIMA website, which I will go here, and I was reviewing this yesterday with you all about the certification exams. And it breaks down like the percentages of the domains, right? So when it talks about the CCS domains, it says that compliance and regulatory is 29.1%. So the things that they're talking about in this particular section is ensure the integrity of health records, apply payer-specific guidelines, recognize patient safety indicators or PSIs, and hospital-acquired conditions based on documentation, ensure compliance with HIPAA's guidelines, okay? And that book talks about HIPAA. And then adherence to AHIMA's standards of ethical coding, and then apply the Uniform Hospital Discharge Data Set, the UHDDS. So that is something that's with HIPAA and everything, that's covered there. So and then in the other section, which is the coding, the coding knowledge and skills, you still have to be able to say, apply coding conventions, guidelines, and regulatory guidance. So while it's not that, it's still covered plenty enough. So let's see. But yes, I would definitely recommend that for studying that part. Like I said, that was literally a one-stop shop. And let's see. I mean, I could go there. So I can tell you guys what's actually in that book. Because when I think of compliance and regulatory, I think of all of those things. So Mm-hmm. And Cengage makes it. So they are, I mean, that's what they do. They make study guides. Um, let's see. Load, load, load. All right. I'm trying to get to the table of contents. Contents. Listen to this. So, laws and regulations that you will encounter: introduction into healthcare laws, regulations, and business protocols, government regulations and healthcare providers, and employment law, Family and Medical Leave Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and then Federal Age Discrimination Act, Equal Pay Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, Workers' Compensation, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and Employee Retirement Income Salary Act, HIPAA, health insurance, health insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, High Tech Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, unions and healthcare workers, and then working conditions and collections. And then from Constitution to the courtroom, it all starts with the Constitution, healthcare, federal or state law, administrative law, common law, the distinction between criminal and civil law, and into the courtroom, and then criminal acts and intentional torts, criminal acts, abuse, fraud, and then civil causes of action, intentional torts, what makes a contract. And I remember going over all of this type of stuff when I was in school. And then it says what makes a contract, and then medical malpractice and other lawsuits, practicing medicine, negligence or malpractice. I remember that one. Elements of medical malpractice lawsuit, and then informed consent, impact of medical malpractice suits, analysis of the problem, risk management issues in the medical office, defenses to a medical malpractice cause of action, malpractice insurance, product liability, strict liability, premises liability, the health record, introduction, and then electronic health records, types of health records, privacy and privilege communication, ownership of the health record, access to the health record, and credibility of the health record, introduction to ethics, morals, etiquette, ethical environment of healthcare, and then importance of studying ethics, law and ethics of patient confidentiality, and then professional ethics and the living, and then birth and the beginning of life, and then it has chapter 12. So that is the lay of the land on this book, and it like I said, it's very comprehensive. This was the stuff that I was learning in school, and so that I passed the CCA when I took it the first time, and there was everybody else in my class that didn't pass it. So that was one of the ones that I enjoyed this chapter, but the medical law and ethics one. But that is the most comprehensive one that I have found that I like. There may be others that you find that you like, but that is one that I thought was really good, really comprehensive, and would be very helpful, for somebody starting out. So that would be what I would recommend. Had I known that, I definitely would have got that before the CCS. But I did good anyway. I passed. So that was the important thing. I passed. All right. So, are we good? Does anybody else have any questions? Because if not, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But very interesting tonight. So, to recap, no, you don't have to know ICD-9. We are not going to go into ICD-11 until ways away. So you can relax on that. And you should be able to work anywhere when you are a brand new medical coder, or you should try to work anywhere when you're brand new, because you never want to hold yourself back from ability to be able to go anywhere. Okay. The more that you challenge yourself in the beginning, the more opportunities you will have, because you know a lot. And that is just something that would be very helpful for you. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you like this, please hit the like button. Don't be shy. Share this if it helped you, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.